She's one step inside the distance I have been managing for 5 weeks, and my back has found the counter without my permission. Her hand is at my wrist, not grabbing, covering, the heel of her palm warm against the inside joint where my pulse is doing something I would prefer not to document. The underbench light makes everything close and warm and entirely wrong for the conversation I have been telling myself we are not having, she says, in the voice she uses for things that have already been decided. I need to tell you something, and I'm going to need you to stay still while I do. My free hand has found the counter edge. I am very still. I am finding this professionally manageable for approximately one more sentence. If you want to hear uncensored too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. 3 weeks before I started this contract, my sister called to tell me about the nanny she'd hired. Reliable, she said. Steady. Celine had a 6-year-old and a rotating overnight shift schedule, and a particular talent for choosing people she trusted absolutely, and then reporting this choice to me as a fait accompli because she knew I would have questions. She did not tell me specifically that the reliable and steady person was Noor. I found that out when I walked into the house on a Sunday afternoon in early February, with my sight bag and my laptop and 4 months of carefully maintained not thinking, and Noor was standing in the kitchen doorway with a dish towel over her shoulder and a 6-year-old on her hip, and she looked at me with those dark, steady eyes and said simply, "Ida, I thought it might be you." I had not seen Noor since Celine's wedding, 18 months prior. At the wedding, she had been a guest, a friend of Celine's from before, a woman I had spent 45 minutes talking to about infrastructure on a terrace before I understood that I was in significant trouble, and then excused myself and flew home the next morning and applied myself to the project of not thinking about it with the same precision I bring to load-bearing calculations. I had been moderately successful. I had been specifically successful enough that I was able to take this contract and stay in this house without naming to myself why the prospect felt like something I should think carefully about before agreeing to. I agreed to it in under 30 seconds. This is the kind of data point that, in a structural assessment, would be flagged. I am 33 years old. I build bridges. I calculate specifically the conditions under which structures hold and the conditions under which they fail. And I have found that this competency does not transfer to every domain of applied problem solving, but I had not, until 5 weeks ago, fully understood the scope of the limitation. The limitation currently is Noor. The limitation is Noor in the kitchen at 9 p.m. in the clothes she wears at the end of the day. The soft cream long sleeve that is loose at the shoulder, the dark lounge trousers, her hair down and warm and wavy in a way that it is never down during the hours she's working, and the domestic certainty with which she moves through a space that is hers in every functional sense. She runs this house. She has run it for 2 years before I arrived in it, and she will run it for years after I leave it. And I have spent 5 weeks attempting to apply my professional competency for load distribution to the management of this fact, and I am, by any honest metric, failing the project. I am a guest here. Noor is the authority. These 2 facts are structural, and I understand structural facts. What I am less equipped to handle is the specific, granular texture of what that authority looks like at 9 p.m. in the underbench light, when the house is quiet and the child is asleep, and the only sounds are the city ambient through the window and Noor's breathing at the normal distance of a kitchen bench. The bench, I have established, is not wide enough. This is a design flaw I cannot engineer around. Thursday, 5 weeks in, 9:30 p.m. I came in from site at 8:45 p.m. The infrastructure project I'm managing is a drainage system replacement in the South Quarter. Unglamorous work, the kind that matters structurally and reads as invisible to everyone who's not standing in a trench. I'd been in the trench. My trousers still had sight mud at the cuffs when I came through the front door, and I'd gone upstairs to change my top. The technical zip-up I'd been wearing since 6 a.m. was past the point of reasonable domestic presentation, and come back down in a cleaner version of essentially the same thing because I'd left my good clothes in the other city, which is where I live, which is a fact I am occasionally required to remind myself. Noor was in the kitchen when I came down. She's almost always in the kitchen at this hour. This is her house, her time, her chair at the bench, her book in her hands, the specific cup of tea she makes at 8:30 p.m. that she nurses until 10, and none of this is remarkable. I have documented it internally across 35 evenings, and it remains, on paper, entirely unremarkable. I brought my site drawings to the kitchen table because the office upstairs is cold and the kitchen is warm, and I told myself, going to work. The drawings are a drainage schematics overlay, site-specific amendments I need to review before the Thursday morning meeting. Important work. Technical and important, and not something a person with my professional history should have any difficulty concentrating on. By 9:30, the drawings are untouched. I have been reading the same line of my own site notes for 12 minutes. The line is, Section 4, C, invert elevation correction required at junction, C attached. I have read it 9 times and understood it each time, and done nothing further because the attached is 6 inches to my left, and 6 inches to my left is where I would need to reach to get it, and reaching would require moving in a way that would require recalibrating my awareness of the kitchen. And my awareness of the kitchen is currently operating at a level that does not have room for recalibration. Nor, without looking up from her book. You haven't touched those. I look at the drawings. I know. A pause. In the pause, the kettle on the bench contracts once, metal cooling, a specific sound that I have started noticing because it happens in the quiet, and the quiet in this kitchen has become its own kind of atmosphere. Nor. What are you thinking about? The site. A beat, longer than the previous beat. Noor. No, you're not. I don't answer immediately. I look at Section 4C, invert elevation correction required at junction, C attached. I look at it for 1 full second. Then I set my pen down, which is the first honest thing I've done since 8:50 p.m. This is the first time in 5 weeks that either of us has said something true. We don't follow it. We let it sit there in the kitchen between us like a document neither of us has initialed. Noor returns to her book. I return to the drawings that I am not reviewing. The kettle cooling on the bench makes no further sound, and the city ambient comes through the window the way it always does. And the house is the same quiet house it has been every Thursday for 5 weeks. But the sentence is there now. It is structural, it is load-bearing, and we both know it. I have been in this house for 35 days. I have mapped its domestic rhythms with the same instinctive precision I apply to site surveys. Because precision is how I make sense of new environments, and because understanding the load-bearing elements of a space, who cooks, who locks up, who knows where the spare torch is kept, and what time the radiators come on, is how I locate myself within it. Nor is every load-bearing element. This is not a metaphor I chose deliberately. It is the assessment that presented itself when I ran the survey. She wakes before the house. She has a specific system for the morning that involves the child's breakfast, the school bag preparation, and a sequence of kitchen tasks that she performs in an order that is never written down and never varied, and I have watched it from the doorway on mornings when I'm leaving early for site and she hasn't seen me. And I have registered, clinically, professionally, that watching her in the morning kitchen with the low light and her hair still loose and the ivory strap of the slip bra visible at the collar of whatever she wears to start the day is a fact I am required to file under structural information, not desire, and move on from. I have been filing it there for 35 days. The filing system is not holding. She knows where everything is. She knows where I put things. This is the specific quality that I have been attempting to neutralize through rational analysis and failing. She knows where I put things because she runs this house, and knowing where things are is her professional function. And yet there is something in the specificity of her awareness that does not feel purely professional. The way she replaced the specific olive oil I bought at the deli near the site without being asked. The way she moved my running shoes from the bottom stair to the rack by the door, which is the correct place for them, which I should have done myself, which she did without comment. The way she knows, without looking, when my tea has gone cold. The mug is the fact I have been attempting not to think about most directly. Since week 1, the first Thursday, the first kitchen evening, the first time I came home from site late and found her at the bench with her book. She has made me tea in the same mug. It is not my mug. It is one of Seelan's mugs, from the back of the cabinet, and there is no visible reason she should have selected it specifically for me, except that she did, from the first night, and she has used it every evening since. It is a broad, flat-bottomed ceramic mug, warm to the hand, deep sage green. Not my sister's taste particularly, not my own particularly, but the right size for the volume of tea I drink in an evening, and the right weight for the bench geometry of a Thursday night kitchen, and I have thought about this mug more than I have thought about the Section 4C invert elevation correction. And the Section 4C invert elevation correction is, technically, my job. She has never mentioned it. I have never mentioned it. It sits between us on the bench every Thursday like a conversation we are both conducting in a language neither of us has formally agreed to speak. The first time I understood I was in genuine difficulty was week 2. Week 1 I had attributed to the wedding meeting, the 45 minutes on the terrace, the conversation about compression loads and cable tension, the specific way she had said, "I suppose I always liked the idea that something invisible holds it up," and then looked at me with her dark, steady eyes as if she knew exactly what she'd done, and then smiled with the calm of a person who was entirely comfortable with the weight of things. I had attributed the week 1 difficulty to residual terrace energy. A reasonable assessment, an engineering assessment, cause and identified effect. No further modeling required. Week 2, Wednesday evening. I came in from site at 7 p.m. and Noor was in the garden with my niece Layla, running some kind of invented game involving a hula hoop and arbitrary rules that appeared to change every 30 seconds. And I watched from the kitchen window for 4 minutes before she looked up and caught me watching, and didn't react beyond a small, private smile that was directed at the garden and not at me. Except that I felt it in my chest as specifically as if it had been directed at me, and that was when I revised my structural assessment to, "This is not residual." After that, I applied the engineering principle of containment. You cannot always remove the load. Sometimes you can only distribute it. I distributed it across 33 more evenings of careful domestic routine, the sight bag in the hall, the drawings on the kitchen table, the mug on the bench. "Good evening, Noor. How was Layla today? The weather on the project?" The unremarkable conversation of 2 adults managing a shared space with professional courtesy and approximately 300% more awareness than the conversation required. It worked as a containment strategy the way most containment strategies work, imperfectly and with increasing maintenance cost. By week 4, the maintenance cost was significant. By Thursday of week 5, I was sitting at the kitchen table pretending to review drainage schematics and reading the same line 9 times. And Noor looked up from her book and said, "No, you're not," and I put down my pen, and the containment strategy was no longer viable as designed. 9:41 p.m. Noor stands. This is not unusual. She stands, refills her tea, does the small domestic circulatory movements of a person entirely at ease in a space. I know her movements in this kitchen at this hour, the way I know the load specifications of a bridge deck. Not because I studied them deliberately, but because I have been in the space long enough that they are part of the structural model, whether I want them there or not. What is unusual is this. She takes my mug, without asking, without commenting. She takes my mug, the sage green one, the one she has chosen for me since week 1, and refills it at the kettle, and then instead of placing it at my side of the table, where it has lived every Thursday evening for 5 weeks, she leans across the bench and sets it down directly in front of me. Directly, which requires her to lean across, which places her closer than the bench configuration usually requires, which places her, for the 2 seconds it takes to set down a mug, at a proximity that my body registers before my rational processing catches up. Warmth first, then the scent of her. White tea and something botanical, clean and close and specific. And then the fact that she is within a distance that my skin has been cataloging for 5 weeks and reporting to me in a register I have been refusing to act on. She straightens. She doesn't move away immediately. She's standing at the bench, 12 inches. I calculate this involuntarily. It is a reflex. And she is looking at the mug she just set down. And then she looks at me, and the underbench light is warm and directional and makes the ivory of her top luminous at the shoulder. And the problem with the underbench light is that it makes everything visible in the wrong way, in the way that removes professional distance rather than supporting it. And I am aware of this and I cannot engineer around it. Something happens in my chest. Specific, not metaphorical, a specific physical pressure, low and central, below the sternum, the kind of sensation that arrives in advance of whatever the mind is about to catch up to. I say, "Noor," just the name, not a question. Not a sentence, not a complaint or a request or a professional observation about the bench geometry or the mug placement, just her name, which I have said probably 600 times in 5 weeks in the course of ordinary domestic exchange, and which I have never said quite like this, in this specific register, with this specific amount of what is happening underneath it. I say it and then I stop, because what comes after it is not something I have prepared. The mug is in front of me, still warm. She chose it in week 1. She has set it in front of me instead of to the side for the first time in 5 weeks. And these are data points I am entering into the structural model. And the structural model is telling me things I am not prepared to act on yet. She looks at me. The look is 2 seconds longer than the bench geometry requires. Then she goes back to her book. I pick up the mug. My hand is steady. I am a professional. My hand is entirely steady, and the mug is warm against my palm. The specific warmth of something chosen by someone else and given without explanation. And I look at the drainage schematics that I am not reviewing, and I make no further sound. The bench at 9:44 p.m. is very quiet. Noor has her book open, page held with her thumb, but I know by the interval of her eye movements, I have been in this kitchen long enough to know this, that she is not reading. She is holding the book the way you hold something when you need your hands to be doing something other than what they want to do. I know about this. I am currently using a mechanical pencil for the same purpose. The city comes through the window in low registers, traffic at distance, a siren moving away, the particular ambient sound of a residential street at 9:45 p.m. in February. The child is asleep upstairs. My sister is 3 kilometers away in an overnight ward, which is her Thursday, which is why tonight is this. The house is the smallest it gets on a Thursday. Just these 2 rooms of warmth and quiet and the underbench light and both of us at the bench, pretending to do other things. I have been doing this for 5 weeks. I am prepared to admit this to myself in the privacy of the site notes I am not reviewing, extraordinarily good at the performance of other things. I can sit in this kitchen with Noor at the bench and hold a pencil and look at the drainage schematics and be, from the outside, entirely an engineer reviewing site notes on a Thursday evening. I have practiced this. It is a skill I did not know I had before this contract. What I have not become good at is the interior of it. The interior of it is less manageable. The interior of it is the weight of the mug in my hand that she chose, the specific sound of Noor's breathing at the normal distance of a bench, which I should not be able to distinguish from ambient sound, and which I can distinguish from ambient sound with the same precision that I can distinguish a 3mm misalignment in a structural joint. The warmth of the kitchen, her warmth, the warmth of a house she has run for 2 years and made her own, against the cold I carry in from sight, which I have not fully shed in 5 weeks, because shedding it would require relaxing in a way that relaxing here does not permit. I rotate the pencil between my fingers. Section 4. C. Invert elevation correction. I turn the page. I read nothing on the next page. 9:47 p.m. Noor sets down her book. Not closed, page held with her thumb as a placeholder, which is what she does when she intends to return to it. She sets it on the bench and she looks at me. And the look tonight is different from the looks of the previous 34 evenings. It is without the domestic frame, without the professional courtesy architecture, without the careful structural layering that both of us have been applying to the fact of being in this kitchen at this hour, which is the thing we have both been doing. I understand now. We have both been doing it, both of us, equally, not just me, and which she is not doing tonight. She's simply looking at me. The underbench light catches the warm brown of her hair and the ivory at the shoulder of her top and the pale warmth of her skin. And I look at all of this with the stillness of a person who is not moving, because moving would require acknowledging that they have noticed, and I have spent 5 weeks becoming expert at the practice of noticing without acknowledging. On the bench between us, 12 inches. Exactly. I have stopped calculating it consciously, but the number presents itself anyway. The kettle on the bench makes a sound, a specific contraction, metal cooling, a domestic click that in any other context would be invisible. And in the 9:47 p.m. quiet of this kitchen, it is audible, and it marks something, a before and an after. Noor closes the book. Not a placeholder. The thumb releases the page. The book closes fully. This is a different category of action from setting it down with her place held. Setting it down is a pause. Closing it is a decision. I watch her make it, and I do not breathe for what feels like a structural interval, but is probably 4 seconds. Her hand remains on the book. Flat, still, and 12 inches from where my hand is on the table beside the drawings I have not reviewed. 12 inches is a measurement. It is also a problem. It is both simultaneously, and I am an engineer, and I understand that a problem and a measurement can be the same thing. She says nothing yet. Neither do I. The kitchen holds us both at 9:47 p.m., and the underbench light is warm, and we are both aware. I know we are both aware. I know this now with the same certainty I know load specifications, of exactly how much distance is between us and of what it would mean to close it. 9:51 p.m. Noor reaches across and straightens the site drawings on the table. This is a thing she does. In the house, generally, she straightens, tidies, organizes, not because she has been asked to, but because she is a person who runs a space. And running a space means maintaining its geometry. I have watched her do this with Layla's things, with Seelan's paperwork on the side table, with my own running shoes at the bottom stair. It is a functional action, a domestic action, entirely unremarkable as a category. Her hand on the drawings is not unremarkable. She straightens them. A small adjustment, they were barely askew. And then her hand returns to the table and rests there. Near my forearm, not on, near. The specific placement of near, which in structural terms is a measurement and not a contact, and which in the terms of what is happening in this kitchen at 9:51 p.m. is neither purely one nor purely the other. Her hand on the table surface, the cool ceramic warmth of it, at a distance I could close with a lateral movement of 3 centimeters. I do not make a lateral movement of 3 centimeters. I look at the drawings, neatly aligned. I look at her hand on the table. I look at the gap between her hand and my forearm, and I calculate it with the involuntary precision of someone who has been calculating this specific category of gap for 5 weeks. Then she does something I did not predict from the model. She pulls out the chair beside me and sits in it. Not across, beside. The chair that has been, for 5 weeks, a chair at the table. Neutral, unoccupied during our kitchen evenings. The geography of a cross maintained, because a cross is the professional configuration. A cross is the domestic routine configuration. A cross is the configuration that allows the bench between us to function as a managed distance. She's sat across from me every evening for 5 weeks. She sits beside me now, turning the chair slightly so she is angled toward me rather than parallel to the table, and the warmth of her arrives at my left side. The specific domestic warmth of a person at close proximity who has been at a maintained distance. And the arrival of it at close range is a physical event I register low in my chest with the precision of a measurement instrument. On the chair back behind me, my dark technical zip-up, which I removed when I came in. Under it, the black architectural underwire bra, visible at the neckline of the top, I changed into, which is finer than the zip-up and shows the bra line at the shoulder. I am aware of this. I am aware of it the way I am aware of the mug and the drawings and the 12 inches, as a fact I am carrying in my body that I have not located a professional category for. Noor is beside me. The ivory of her slip bra is visible at the collar of her cream long sleeve in the under-bench light, the strap catching the warm directional light in a way I have noted. I am prepared to be precise about this. 8 separate times in the past 5 weeks, in a variety of lighting conditions, with results that are consistent across conditions in which I have been filing under structural information in which the filing system no longer accepts. She says, "You said my name like that 10 minutes ago. The kitchen at 9:51 p.m. is very quiet. The city continues through the window. The child is asleep. The drawings are neatly stacked beside us and the sage green mug is in front of me, and Noor is beside me in the chair that has been empty every Thursday evening for 5 weeks. She says, say it again if you want to. The warmth of her is at my left side. Not close enough to be contact. Not yet. Not quite. But close enough that when she breathes, I can hear it. The sound is quiet and steady. It is entirely at odds with what my own breath is doing, which is the specific, involuntary evidence of 5 weeks of managed distance arriving at its structural limit. I know what it costs to hold still. I know because I have been calculating the cost for 35 days, and the cost is higher than I budgeted for, and I am a person who builds structures that hold under load, and the specific load of this kitchen at 9:51 p.m. with Noor beside me and her breath audible, and the mug in front of me and the question she has just asked, which is not a question, which is an opening, a held door, a structural invitation. The specific load of this is past the specification I calculated when I agreed to this contract in under 30 seconds. I don't say it. Not yet. What I do is look at her, directly, without the bench geometry between us, without the professional courtesy structure, without the domestic frame. I look at her the way I have not looked at her in 5 weeks, of very careful, very practiced not looking, and the directness of it is its own kind of saying. Her dark, steady eyes on mine. She is entirely steady. She's the steadiest person I have ever been this close to. And the steadiness of her, the specific, warm, unhurried steadiness, is not distance. It is the opposite. It is the composure of someone who knows exactly what she is doing and has decided to do it. The space between us, beside by beside, at the kitchen table is smaller than 12 inches now. We have not moved. The geometry has moved. Inside the kitchen, the underbench light at 9:53 p.m. I should be thinking about the project. Section 4. C. Invert elevation correction required at junction. C attached. Thursday morning meeting, 9 participants. I am the senior engineer. I have site notes. I have drawings on the table that are, at this moment, so far from the functional center of my attention that they might as well be located in the other city, which is where I live, which is a fact that has never felt as specific as it does in this kitchen at this hour. I am thinking about the mug, I am thinking about week 1, the first Thursday, the first time I came in from site to find her at the bench with her book in the kitchen she runs. And she made 2 cups of tea without asking what I wanted. And she placed the sage green one in front of me, and I thought, she's picked the right size, which is a structural observation. And then, why does she know the right size? Which is a different category of observation entirely. And then I stopped following that line of thinking because following it had implications I was not prepared to accept in week 1 of a 3-month contract. I accepted them in week 2 and have been managing them since. Week 2, the mug again. Same mug, same bench, same placement to my side of the table. No comment, no explanation. Week 3, the same. Week 4, I cannot not notice I am a person whose professional function is noticing that she refills it without being asked at the right time before I have registered that it needs refilling, which is a domestic attentiveness that she extends across the house and which I receive as something else entirely and cannot recategorize no matter how many times I attempt the filing. Week 5, tonight, she has set it directly in front of me. This is a 1 centimeter change in the placement of a ceramic mug. In engineering terms, a 1 centimeter variance is the difference between a structure that holds and a structure that doesn't, and I am applying this framework because I need a framework, and the framework I have is engineering, and the engineering framework is telling me this is a load-bearing change. Noor beside me in the chair, her warmth at my left side, the ivory at her collar in the underbench light. Her hand on the table, not quite at my forearm, the distance between us not quite closed. She has asked me something. She has said, say it again if you want to, in the voice she uses for things that have been decided. The steady voice, the domestic authority voice that runs the house and knows where everything is and has chosen, specifically, the right mug since week 1. I am a guest in this house. She is the authority here. This is structural, and I understand structural facts. What I understand, more precisely, in the 9:53 p.m. quiet of this kitchen, is that the structural fact I have been living inside for 5 weeks is this. She chose it. The mug, and everything the mug is the surface of, she chose from week 1. And I have been here, in the structure she runs, receiving it without naming it, and tonight she has named the structure for both of us and asked me to speak inside it. She is waiting. With the specific patience of a person who runs a space and knows that space will hold. I breathe. 1 breath. The sound of it is audible in the kitchen quiet, and I am too far past the point of managing what sounds I make to be concerned about this. I say, Noor. Same name, same syllables. Different weight, all of it, all 5 weeks of it. The mug and the bench and the 12 inches and the underbench light and the 33 evenings of performing other things and the specific load of sitting in this kitchen at 9 p.m. and choosing, every evening, to contain it. All of it is in the 2 syllables. I cannot remove it. I don't try. She looks at me. Her eyes are dark and steady, and she does not look away. The kitchen holds both of us at 9:53 p.m., and outside the window the city continues its ambient life as if it doesn't know that something has shifted in the load-bearing structure of this house that will not shift back. 9:54 p.m. to 9:57 p.m. passes in the kitchen the way certain things pass. Not quickly, not slowly, but in the specific arrested manner of an interval that both people are inside and neither is choosing to shorten. We are at the table, beside each other, the configuration of the last 5 weeks broken in a single chair movement. The site drawings are to my right, neatly aligned by her hand. The mug is in front of me. Nor is to my left, close enough that her warmth is not ambient but specific. The warmth of a person, of this person, at this distance, at this hour. She has asked me to say her name. I have said it. What comes after that is not something either of us has a domestic script for. I look at the drawings. I look at them in the way you look at something when you need your eyes to be somewhere that isn't the thing you are actually looking at. Which is her profile at close range in the underbench light, the soft curve of her cheek, the warm brown of her loose hair, the ivory at her collar, and the specific stillness of her, which is not the stillness of someone waiting passively, but the stillness of someone who has made a decision and is allowing it to arrive at its own pace. She is patient. This is a fact I have known for 5 weeks. She is the most patient person I have shared a kitchen with, and it has never been directed at me quite like this. The patience as a specific, directed thing. A door held, I say to the drawings. I've been looking at you for 5 weeks. The sentence is out before I've decided to say it. This is the thing about having spent 5 weeks not saying anything. When the structure gives, it gives. I am an engineer. I know about structural yield. She says, I know. I look at her. She's not looking at the drawings or the mug or the bench. She's looking at me with the dark, steady eyes and the quiet that is not absence of feeling but the container of it. I should have. I start, and she says, You didn't need to. It wasn't time. The certainty of this. The way she says it as a simple fact, the way she knows the schedule of things, the way she runs the space. Not just the kitchen, not just the house, but the specific space that 5 weeks of Thursday evenings have built between us, and knows when a thing is its time and when it isn't. And now, I say, she looks at me for one long, specific, kitchen quiet second. Then she says, Now I'm going to move. And she does. 9:58 p.m. She turns her chair. Not much, a small rotation, a deliberate repositioning, and she is facing me now, angled toward me in the chair, and I turn to meet her, and the configuration is no longer beside by beside, but facing, and the distance between us is no longer managed by bench geometry or professional courtesy or the habit of 35 evenings of careful domestic routine. Her hands are at the edge of my chair, not my knees, the chair edge beside them close. The warmth of her hands at the chair edge is a specific, registered fact. I note this, I cannot not note it, slightly higher on my chair than she is. She is noticeably shorter than me, and in this configuration, facing, the difference is visible, and the effect of it is not what I would have predicted. I would have predicted that being taller, physically, would produce a particular kind of dynamic. What it produces instead is this: her looking up at me slightly, steady and unhurried, and the entire balance of domestic authority remaining entirely, undisputedly hers. She runs the house. She knows where everything is. She chose the mug. She closed the book. She moved the chair. She's shorter by 4 inches and has done every single thing that has moved us from the bench geometry of week 1 to this configuration at 9:58 p.m. And she is looking at me with the dark, steady eyes of a person who is exactly where she meant to be. My hands are in my lap. I am very still. She says, I want to tell you something. I say, You said that. The word that lands in the kitchen with the specific weight of the moment in the hook, which is where we are, the moment I have been in and did not understand I was approaching from the beginning. I know, she says. I'm still deciding how to say the rest. The kitchen at 9:58 p.m. is very quiet. The city through the window, the cooling bench. The underbench light, warm and directional and entirely wrong for professional distance, entirely right for this. The sight drawings on the table, beside the mug. I look at her. She is looking at me, and she is still deciding, and the deciding is visible in her. The specific stillness of a person organizing something into language that has been held a long time in another form. I know this stillness. I have been performing a version of it for 5 weeks. Then she stops deciding. She says, I've been making you the specific mug since week 1. The kitchen is very quiet. That's not a coincidence, she says. A beat, 1 beat. The kettle on the bench, the city ambient, the sleeping child 2 floors up, and the weight of 35 evenings of sage green ceramic held between us as a sentence, finally in the open. Then, neither is tonight. Something happens in the seconds after she says this. The seconds are long. They are the longest seconds in the kitchen at 9:58 p.m., which is a kitchen I have spent 35 evenings in and which I have never experienced at this particular duration, this particular arrested quality of time that happens when something structural has shifted and the structure has not yet settled into its new configuration. My hand moves. I register this a moment after it has already happened. The hand on the arm of the chair, released from the grip I hadn't noticed I was maintaining, released and placed, flat, open, the whole palm, on her knee. Her knee. The specific warmth of it through the dark fabric of her lounge trousers, warmer than the ambient warmth of the kitchen, warmer than I expected, the warmth of a person I have been within a managed distance of for 5 weeks, and whose proximity has been a quantity I have been calculating with engineering precision and which is, now, at the specific measure of my palm against her knee, no longer calculated. Felt, directly. She looks at my hand on her knee, then she looks at me. I say, I know it isn't. My voice is steady. I am a professional. My voice is steady and my hand is flat on her knee, and the kitchen at 9:58 p.m. is the smallest it has ever been. She breathes. I can hear it, the quality of her breath at this distance. The soft inhale that is not quite steady, which is the first not quite steady thing I have observed in Noor in 5 weeks, and which does something to my chest that I cannot categorize as anything other than what it is. Recognition. The recognition that her composure, which I have been holding as the fixed point of the last 5 weeks, is not infinite. That she is here too, inside this, managing it the way I have been managing it, with precision and patience and the specific domestic competence of a person who runs a space and knows it will hold. And that she is, at 9:58 p.m., one breath past the edge of management. Her hands at the chair edge beside my knees. Not on my knees, close, the warmth of them at proximity. She leans forward, 1 centimeter. The final centimeter, not toward me, but into the space between us, which is no longer 12 inches and is no longer 6 inches, and is, at this particular 9:58 p.m. measurement, the width of 1 breath. Her breath at my face is warm, steady. The sound of it is the only sound in the kitchen. Not the city, not the cooling bench, not the sleeping child. Just this, the specific sound of Noor's breath at close range, which is not a sound I have catalogued in 35 evenings of Thursday kitchen proximity, because 35 evenings of Thursday kitchen proximity has not placed me at this distance, and the distance is different from every previous measurement. It is the measurement of arrival. I close my eyes. Not surrender. Arrival. The specific choice of a person who has been approaching a place for 5 weeks and is now, at 9:58 p.m. in a kitchen lit by the underbench light, with the site drawings on the table and the sage green mug still warm in front of her, arrived. I say, I knew in week 2. Quietly, into the breath width of space between us, into the warmth. The mug is on the table, still warm. Chosen in week 1, set down in front of me tonight, carrying all 35 evenings of Thursday evening in the warmth of its ceramic sides. She says, very close, week 2. And she says it the way you repeat something that you are deciding to keep. What happens next in the kitchen at 9:58 p.m. is not something I have the technical language for, and I am a person who has technical language for most things that happen to structures under load. What happens is, the breath width of space closes, not suddenly. Not in the way of things that collapse, in the way of things that yield, which is a different category of structural event, yield versus failure. And every engineer knows the distinction. Failure is what you prevent. Yield is what you design for. It is the point at which a structure, under sufficient load, moves as it was built to move, not breaks, does not break, allows the load to be distributed, finds its new configuration. This is yield. Her hands leave the chair edge. I feel them before I see them. Warmth at my wrist first, the right wrist, covering it the way she covered it in the moment that was the hook. The moment I have been living before and toward without knowing its coordinates until now. The heel of her palm against the inside joint, warm, and the specific quality of held in place that is not restraint, but its opposite. A kind of claiming, quiet and deliberate. The claiming of a thing that has been moving toward this for 35 evenings. I open my eyes. She's very close. Her face, at this distance, in the underbench light, is not the face I have been managing at bench distance for 5 weeks. It is the same face, but different in the way that everything is different at arrival versus approach. The same architecture, but in close, the warmth of her skin and the dark steadiness of her eyes, and the ivory at her collar and the specific, unhurried certainty of her, that I have been telling myself was domestic authority, and which is, at this distance, undeniably something else as well. I say her name once more, the third time in this kitchen tonight. The weight of it is different again. Each repetition has carried more, and this one carries everything. The mug, the bench, the 12 inches, the 35 evenings, the 45 minutes on the terrace 18 months ago that I flew home from the next morning and applied myself to not thinking about. I am not flying home. I am not applying myself to anything except this kitchen, this hour, this distance of 0. Her thumb at my wrist. Moving once, a slow, deliberate arc, the pad of it against the inside joint where my pulse is. And then still. I feel my own heartbeat in the place her thumb is resting. This is a medical fact, a physiological fact, and it is the most intimate thing that has happened in this kitchen. And it is happening in 1 square centimeter of the inside of my wrist, and the rest of me is very, very still. She looks at me, says nothing. The dark, steady eyes at close range, which are not management or professional courtesy or domestic authority. They are wanting, specific, unhurried, chosen wanting. The wanting of a person who has been patient for 5 weeks and has decided at 9:59 p.m. on a Thursday in February that the patience has reached its right end. I think she chose the right mug. She chose it in week 1. She has known the right size of things since before I arrived. And then I stop thinking. The kitchen at 10:14 p.m. I am aware, in the part of my mind that never fully stops running structural assessments, that the site drawings are on the table, that the Thursday morning meeting is in 11 hours, that the drainage schematics have a Section 4C that requires attention before 9 participants convene around a conference table, in a room I will have to be professionally present in the city that is my home, which is not this city. I am aware of all of this in the way that you are aware of a weather forecast for a location you are not currently in, intellectually, correctly, without its having any particular bearing on your immediate experience of the present climate. The present climate is the kitchen, 10:14 p.m., the underbench lights still warm and directional, both of us at the table, the configuration of the past 15 minutes rearranging itself into something I do not have a prior category for. Nora is beside me again, not facing now, the proximity reconfigured into a kind of settled closeness, her shoulder against mine at the table, the warmth of her at contact length and no longer at managed distance. And this, of all the physical facts of the evening, is the one I am least prepared for. The simple warmth of her shoulder against mine in the kitchen we share at 10:14 p.m. The mug is in front of me. I am holding it, still warm. She says quietly, "Week 2, I say. Wednesday evening. You were in the garden with Layla. I was watching from the window." "I know," she says. "I looked up. You smiled," I say. "At the garden." A pause. Then, "At you." The kitchen is very quiet. The city ambient continues through the window. My shoulder against hers at the table edge, the warmth of it, the specific weight of being in contact with someone I have managed the awareness of for 35 evenings, at careful bench distance. "I've been making you that mug," she says, "every Thursday." "I noticed," I say. "I know you noticed," she says. And she says it with the quiet certainty of a person who has known this, has known it from the beginning, who runs the space and knows what happens in it, and chose anyway the right mug from week 1. I look at the mug, the sage green ceramic, broad and flat-bottomed, warm in both hands. I think about 35 Thursday evenings of this specific warmth. I think about the mug as the surface of something that has had no language until tonight, when she named it in one sentence in front of me and did not look away. I say, "It's a good mug." She says quietly, "Yes." And she says it the way she says most things, simply, without ornamentation, in the steady voice of a person who is exactly where she meant to be. And it is not about the mug, or it is about the mug, and also about everything the mug is the surface of. And I understand both readings simultaneously because I am an engineer and I read load-bearing structures for a living. And the load-bearing structure of this conversation is not the mug. It is this. She chose it. In week 1, before she knew what we would build inside this house over 5 Thursday evenings and 33 other evenings and 1 terrace conversation 18 months ago on the evening of my sister's wedding, She chose the right size, and she placed it, and she has placed it every evening since. And tonight she placed it directly in front of me and sat beside me in the chair that has been empty and named what she has been doing. I should address the contract. I should say 7 weeks, and then I should address the other city, which is my city, which is not this city. These are the structural facts of the situation as I understand it, and I build structures for a living, and structural facts do not disappear because you are not addressing them. I do not address them tonight. Tonight I hold the mug she chose and sit with my shoulder against hers in the kitchen that is her house, and I look at the site drawings neatly aligned on the table, and I do not speak, and neither does she, and the not speaking is not absence. It is the sound of 2 people inside a new configuration, adjusting to the load. 11:30 p.m. The kitchen at 11:30 p.m. is the same kitchen, same underbench light, warm and directional, same city, ambient through the window, same drawings on the table, the mug between us. The overhead light is still off. The house is still quiet. I have not looked at the Section 4 C-invert elevation correction since 9:30 p.m., which is going to require some recalibration before the Thursday morning meeting. And I am a professional engineer with a significant infrastructure project, and I am fully aware of this, and I have decided that this is a problem for 7 a.m. and not for 11:30 p.m. At 11:30 p.m., I am sitting in the kitchen that Noor runs, in the chair that has been at the table for 35 evenings, with the site drawings beside me and the sage green mug in both hands, and Noor is beside me at the table. And the shoulder contact of the past 76 minutes is a new structural element I am incorporating into the load model. She says, "You should probably look at those before you go to bed." "Probably," I say. "I won't tell you what to do," she says. A pause. I look at her. She looks at the drawings. There's a quiet in her that is different from the kitchen quiet of the past 5 weeks. Settled specifically, like a space that has found its configuration and is no longer redistributing. "You run this house," I say. "I do," she says. "You could tell me what to do," I say, structurally speaking. She looks at me then, and the dark, steady eyes have something in them that is new and also entirely consistent. The same warmth that chose the mug in week 1, the same patience that waited 5 weeks to close a book and move a chair. And underneath it, something that is not patience. That is what patience has been the container of, and which is here now at 11:30 p.m. in the kitchen, no longer contained, she says. Structurally speaking, look at the drawings, drink the tea, sleep. "And tomorrow?" I say. She looks at the mug in my hands, then at me. "Tomorrow I'll make you the same mug," she says. At 8:30, before you leave for site. It is the simplest sentence. It is also, structurally, everything. The assurance that this is not a single Thursday evening, but a structure with a tomorrow with an 8:30 a.m., with the same mug on the same bench, in the same kitchen that she runs, and that I have been a guest in, and that tomorrow morning will be something else as well. I look at the mug, still warm. I have been holding it for a long time. "Okay," I say, and then, Noor, 3rd name, 4th name, all the names since 9:41 p.m., each one carrying more than the one before. She looks at me and I don't finish the sentence. She doesn't need me to because she runs the space and she knows what's in it. She stands, takes the mug, refills it at the kettle, the specific action, the specific motion, exactly as she has performed it for 35 evenings, and sets it in front of me. Not to my side, in front. As she did tonight at 9:41 p.m. when this began. She sets it down and her hand stays on the table for a moment, close to mine, and then she says, "Section 4, C." I say, "I know." She picks up her book and she goes to the doorway. She pauses there, in the doorframe, the warm light behind her, the ivory at her collar, and she looks at me once more with the steady, dark, unhurried eyes. And she says, "Good night, Ida." "Good night," I say. And I say her name. She goes. The kitchen is quiet. The mug is warm between my hands. I look at the site drawings on the table. I look at them for a long time before I reach for the drawings, and when I pull them toward me, a single sheet comes with them, slipped beneath, not attached, a piece of paper in Noor's handwriting. There's a phone number at the top. I already have this number. It is in my phone under Noor, Seelands, which is a contact name I have never changed, because changing it would have required acknowledging what I was changing it to. Below the number, in her handwriting, the sentence, 7 weeks is not an ending. It's a distance. Engineers know the difference. I read it twice. I set it down on the table beside the mug. I look at it the way you look at a structure you have assessed and found to be sound, with the specific, quiet recognition of something that will hold. The mug is warm in both hands. The kitchen is the same kitchen it has been for 35 evenings. The site drawings are in front of me. Section 4, IZ clearly visible. Invert elevation correction required at junction. In the morning, Noor told me later, she stacked the drawings neatly at one corner of the table. She always does this. It is part of how she runs the space. What she did not tell me was whether she read them first. I think she did. I think she read Section 4C and the attached and understood exactly what was involved, the load, the depth, the correction required at the junction, and then she stacked them neatly, one corner and left the paper underneath, and went to bed. I think about this the way I think about good structural design, with a specific admiration for the precision of it, and with the knowledge that I would not have done it differently. The mug is warm, the kitchen is quiet. 7 weeks is not an ending. I open the drawings and I begin to read.